Let us pray. Our Father, keep us mindful of the special and unique opportunity we have to work for our constituents and our province and our country. And in that work, give us both strength and wisdom. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Mr. Speaker, I'm very pleased today to introduce to members of the Legislative Assembly the High Commissioner to Canada from the United Kingdom, His Excellency Nicholas Bain. Mr. Bain is recently appointed to the position of High Commissioner to Canada, having just been appointed in April. He's had an opportunity today to visit Alberta for his first visit, to meet with members of the private sector, to meet with members of our government, and to meet with members of the academic community. Mr. Bain has had a very distinguished personal career and as well a very distinguished professional career. And to have both of those coming together in this representative to Canada from the United Kingdom certainly bodes well for the Canadian-Alberta relationships with the United Kingdom. Our relationship, of course, is clear to members of this Assembly. It has both historical connections, it has political connections in terms of our precedents there, and clearly for Albertans it has very strong economic connections. We hope that those will develop, and in fact will strengthen during the period of Mr. Bain's appointment as the High Commissioner to Canada. With Mr. Bain is his wife as well, and I would also introduce to the Legislative Assembly, Mr. Speaker, the High Commissioner's supportive staff here in Canada, at the Consular Corps level in Vancouver, and responsible for Western Canada, Mr. Tony Joy and his wife as well. Mr. Speaker, I would ask that these distinguished visitors rise in your Speaker's Gallery, and I would also ask, Mr. Speaker, that members of our Assembly extend to them the very warmest and best May welcome. Mr. Speaker, presenting petitions. Great. Calgary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to present a petition signed by residents of my constituency asking that the Government of Alberta review the present NEF or noise exposure forecast contours as they relate to the Calgary International Airport. The residents believe that these contours, legally protected by the Airport Vicinity Protection Area Regulation, under the Alberta Planning Act, are outdated as they have been in place for 20 years. Thank you.
Reading and receiving petitions.
Edmonton Belmont.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The petition that I read, that I presented on Friday last, I'm wondering if we could now have it read and received.
The undersigned residents of Alberta, Edmonton-based members and employees of the Amusement Operators Association of Alberta hereby petition the Legislative Assembly as follows: that the Legislative Assembly pass a bill similar to ones passed by the legislatures of New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island, permitting the private ownership and operation of video lottery terminals. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills. Tabling returns and reports.
Member for Edmonton Whitemud.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to table in the House 4 copies of the hundreds of coupons that were sent in to Carrie Dion. Apparently the provincial treasurer didn't want them, asked to have them returned, so I've been requested to present them. And on behalf of all of us, including the Mr. Fix-It man there, I'll present these, table these in the House.
Your honourable member, just present them. Thank you. Edmonton Jasper, please.
Sure, I would like to file a copy of the background report on a meeting held in the town of Bonneville yesterday, which I attended along with the Minister of Agriculture and Minister of the Environment, a couple of hundred others. There's also attached a copy of the long-term water management plan for the Coal Lake Beaver River Basin, which was approved by the government in October of 1985.
Minister of Public Works, Supply and Services, followed by the member for Edmonton Centre.
Sure, I'd like to file with the Assembly the annual report for 1991 of the Alberta Association of Architects.
Thank you. Edmonton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to file a copy of 15 questions which I asked at Energy Estimates last Thursday night, which were not responded to by the Minister, as well as 6 questions in response to the reply that the Minister did make to my comments.
There's reservations about that process, and it will be examined.
Introduction of special guests.
Member for Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure to introduce to you and through you to members of the legislature 33 students from College Heights Adventist Junior Academy. They're accompanied today by teachers Maureen and Randy Turnipitsky, Ernie Nolan, and 2 parents. They're seated in the members' gallery. I'd ask them to rise and receive the traditional welcome of this legislature.
Edmonton Beverly.
Mr. Speaker, a pleasure for me indeed today to introduce to you and to members of the Assembly 65 energetic grade 6ers from the School of Edmonton Belmont School in Edmonton Beverly. They are accompanied by their teachers, Mr. David Powley, Mrs. Elaine George, Ms. Marley Dixon, Mrs. Vicky Pasiuk, and a parent, Mrs. Bonnie Unett. I'd ask them now to rise and receive the welcome of the Assembly.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the Premier was laughing about over $500 million this government lost with Novotel, Mr. Speaker, but Albertans are crying because they have to pay the bill. Mr. Speaker, the Premier's lame defense for this mess, Mr. Speaker, is he's now appointed the Auditor General to look into the fiasco. Mr. Speaker, yet the Auditor General himself says that he won't even be able to point fingers or assign blame, Mr. Speaker. Well, frankly, that's not good enough for the people of Alberta, Mr. Speaker.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, after the fact, admittedly, but will the Premier do the right thing and establish now an independent public review into this biggest government loss in the history of Alberta? Let's get to the bottom of it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition would commence his question with a distortion about laughing about the dollars. There may have been something humorous said by somebody during the discussion that may have caused me to smile. But certainly nobody enjoys or feels good about the problems that we're having with Novotel, and I'm disappointed that the Leader of the Opposition would make that kind of a distortion. In terms of an independent review, Mr. Speaker, that is what we have asked the auditor to do.
That's absolute and total nonsense, and the Premier knows that this is a cover-up, pure and simple, Mr. Speaker. Right. Mr. Speaker, he's asked the Auditor General to perform under 17.2 as special duties as may be specified by the Executive Council. Cabinet tells them what they want, Mr. Speaker. Right. And even the Auditor General has said that that's not good enough, Mr. Speaker. If he's not going to go to a public inquiry, Mr. Speaker, would he at least then look at 17.1, where the Auditor General shall perform such special duties as may be specified by the Assembly? Then at least it would be public. Would he at least do that, Mr. Speaker?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General is going to hold an independent review And if the honourable member will only take the time to read the letter, which I tabled in the House of May 21st, 1992, you did not want me to read it, Mr. Speaker, and I won't read it today. But the Auditor General has been directed by the Premier as President of the Executive Council to hold a full comprehensive review. And, Mr. Speaker, to then make his report public. I think, Mr. Speaker, we're going to get all of the facts here. I think it's a responsible way to do it.
It's not a responsible way to do it. This won't come out in the public. It'll be whatever they want after the fact, Mr. Speaker. I'll remind the Premier that in the principal group, which we lost a lot less money, they finally had to move into a public inquiry, Mr. Speaker, pushed in kicking and screaming, but they eventually had to do it. My question to the Premier, you're not going to hide from this. Why not do the right thing right now and open it up to the public? Albertans have a right to know what's going on.
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, we were not, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition uses the lead into his questions to make some statements that aren't accurate. And I hope you indulge me by being able to point out that he's wrong. The government did provide a public inquiry in the case of the principal matter because it was information that was beyond the control of the government. But here, Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General can, in fact, provide all the information. We will make his report public, and he is independent. For the Leader of the Opposition to say that the Auditor General will conduct a review and that's a cover-up is quite an alarming comment for the Leader of the Opposition to make with regard to the Auditor General. That has never been something that he would do, and I think it is quite a direct shot at the credibility of our Auditor General. He reports to this Assembly, and with him conducting a review, it is not a cover-up.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition.
On the Novotel question, and I'm ashamed of the Premier to even suggest that, Mr. Speaker. The Auditor General has said that he can't do the job that the Premier wants. This is a cover-up, and we all know it.
Hear, hear.
Well, my second question, Mr. Speaker, to look at this in a little more detail, Mr. Speaker, Albertans have reason to be worried that this government has not been up front with the full extent of the Novotel fiasco. Mr. Speaker, buried in this government's announcement of last Thursday was a revelation that the government is continuing to guarantee an additional $216 million of loans by Novotel, bringing taxpayer liability for this disaster closer to $780 million, Mr. Speaker. Now, the government claims, Mr. Speaker, that these loans will be paid off. Well, we've heard that before.
Yeah, you got that right.
But, Mr. Speaker, the plain and bottom line is this, that the loan portfolio wasn't good enough to interest the buyers of Novotel, the private sector. My question to the Minister of Technology is this. How can the Minister justify claiming only $500 million in Novotel losses when the government is stuck with an additional $216 million in loans the private sector would not touch?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's not the matter that the private sector would not touch it, it's just that they're not in the financing business, either Northern Telecom or Telexel. The fact is that there are indeed amounts that are out there by way of guarantees that back up monies that are owing to this government. Those monies are indeed secured by, firstly, the assets that were sold to those subscribers. They are also secured by the shares of the companies that owe monies to the government. They're also secured by the licenses to operate exclusive areas of cellular services in the United States. The amounts have been discounted down. They have been reviewed as closely as possible in order to ensure that every last penny that is outstanding is collectible. And Mr. Speaker, it's no different really than a bank that lends money out there saying that those monies they have lent out there are losses. They're not. And so we are very confident, Mr. Speaker, that the bottom line figure that was given at the time of the announcement is indeed a bottom line figure, and the taxpayers can count on it.
Haven't we heard this before?
Yeah.
MagCan, Pocklington, Murius, GSR, Mr. Speaker. Same old lame arguments, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, the bottom line is the minister can talk about writing down the bad loans all he wants, Mr. Speaker. The fact is there's still $216 million that the taxpayers are responsible for. And my question to the minister is simply that. If the remaining loans are so good, Mr. Speaker, they're so good, why was the government unable to sell the loans to the private sector at the same time, Mr. Speaker?
Right.
They were selling assets of the telecommunications company, and they weren't interested in buying paper that amounts to. But the amount that is owing, I should point out to the honourable leader, is far more than the $216 or $214 million that it had been discounted down to. The face value of the amounts owing are in the neighborhood of $300,000, and just out of the abundance of caution in the calculation of this, the discounts were taken and shown only as the $214 million. But that, in turn, as I indicated, Mr. Speaker, is fully secured in every way possible in order to ensure that the taxpayers of Alberta will not have to put up with this sort of a charge.
Mr. Speaker, I've heard that we're fully secured in every way possible. That's the point. With MagCan, GSR, Pocklington, we've heard it all before, Mr. Speaker. Frankly, we don't believe you, nor do the people of Alberta.
Got that right.
But Mr. Speaker, the minister said that they weren't interested in buying paper. I guess not, but certainly I guess we are interested in buying paper. But, Mr. Speaker, if it's so good then, this is public money again, if these are so well secured, Mr. Speaker, will the minister now reveal the true cost of Novotel to taxpayers and release detailed information on the loan portfolio to this assembly?
Right on. Let's have it.
The total cost to the taxpayer, Mr. Speaker, is, as indicated at the time of the announcement, $566 million.
Okay. Edmonton Glengarry on behalf of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General issued two management letters with respect to Novotel, one in 1989 and one in 1991. When I spoke to the Auditor General today, he told me that a management letter is a very serious business. It usually identifies problems in management. I also learned from the Auditor General today that the minister responsible for telecommunications was given copies of the 1989 management letter and the 1991 management letter. My first question is to the minister responsible for telecommunications. The evidence seems to be clear, Mr. Minister, that the minister operated independently, that he didn't consult with his cabinet colleagues, that he didn't consult with caucus, that he went off on his own. And I'd like to ask the minister why he didn't consult and get a collective position to deal with this most serious matter now affecting all Albertans.
Well, Mr. Speaker, when the government had to reacquire Novotel in order to preserve the integrity of the share offering, we put a management committee in place under the chairmanship of Mr. Bill Grace. It was an 8-member management committee, and we gave them a very firm mandate, and that was to refocus and restructure this company and put it in a position where it could be either put on a profitable basis or wound up or sold. At that point in time, the management committee went to work and did, in fact, do a number of restructuring areas that were really important. Some of those were in the area of systems accounting. And what happened, Mr. Speaker, was that, in fact, the Honourable Leader has made reference to the letters from the Auditor General. I couldn't actually recall having received that copy, so I had in my office check, and indeed a copy, I just received it just before coming to the House. A copy of the letter was received. It went into the hands of Mr. Grace with the instructions that he was to address it, and I think that the Auditor General's report that says the Novatel's new management has proposed or taken action to address my recommendations. It is understood the province of Alberta is seeking a purchase for Novotel. That's a notation, Mr. Speaker, from the Auditor General of Alberta, that all those matters have been accounted for and taken care of.
That's open.
Speaker, this is extraordinary. The minister is saying that he didn't recall receiving a copy of the management letter. The Auditor General says a copy as a matter of course goes to the minister. The minister then says that we gave them a firm mandate. Now, what is it, Mr. Minister? It looks like you were operating in the dark. You were not looking at your management letter, and your colleagues didn't know what was going on. When you talk about we giving them a firm mandate, are you talking about your colleagues? And what was the mandate?
Well, whatever the mandate was, Mr. Speaker, it's obvious that it worked because the Auditor General has clearly stated no more problems. His recommendations and his suggestions have been incorporated, and there's the words of the Auditor General to prove it on, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think these letters, these management letters, are critical and crucial because it's after the management letters that are received, after they are received by the minister, he gives out more money. The government gives out more money. It's incredible. I would like a commitment from the minister. He's already referred to that management letter. I want his commitment that he'll file both management letters in this assembly today. Will he give us that commitment?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I believe the honourable leader is in a rut. I've said that whatever was contained in there, whatever the mandate that was given, it's obviously resulted in a total satisfaction of the Auditor General, and he can refer to the public document from the Auditor General. The Auditor General's report is a public document.
Got to read it, though.
Member for cards, order, please. Member for Cardston.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Premier. In various polls and in hearings before our Select Committee on Constitutional Reform, Albertans have been very clear on their position that they would only settle for a full Triple-E Senate. Mr. Premier, you have reflected those views very clearly in recent comments. During the ongoing constitutional meetings that are presently in progress, Mr. Premier, information is coming forward from them that there is only a total of 3 provinces that are on side with the Triple-E Senate concept. Mr. Premier, in view of the solid principles and advantages of this concept for all provinces and for Confederation, can the Premier advise if we're making any headway with convincing other provinces to come on side?
Well, Mr. Speaker, there has been speculation, I think public speculation, that there would be only 3 provinces feeling that the Triple-E Senate was worthy of their support. But I know that the members of this Assembly and certainly the members of the Select Committee realize that as the people of Canada and other provinces, other governments and provinces knew more and more about the Triple-E Senate, that we would be able to convince them of the validity of that proposal. And I'm extremely pleased that we have been able to, as a result of the Western Premiers Conference and the 2 territorial leaders as well last week, and meetings of our Deputy Premier and Minister of Federal Intergovernmental Affairs with other governments, we were able to just recently have 5 governments sign on to support for the principles of elected, effective, and equal. And, Mr. Speaker, to then go into details on the effective powers and have a document which is now circulated for all of the current constitutional discussions for all the provinces to consider. I always felt, Mr. Speaker, that as people realized there was the solid basis for a Triple-E Senate, that more and more of them would endorse it. I'm very pleased that we have been able to get 5 provinces now endorsing the principles and the details of the effective powers, because that has been one of the more difficult matters to deal with. We have not wanted powers that would gridlock the Parliament of Canada, but yet would represent those provinces that don't have the large majority of the population. So we're quite pleased with this progress.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary is to the Premier. Under the present constitutional amending formula requiring support of 7 provinces having 50% of the population, it is imperative that either Ontario or Quebec support the Triple E Senate concept. Can the Premier indicate if any progress is being made to bring either or both of those provinces on side?
Well, Mr. Speaker, that is going to be, I guess, the difficult challenge. We do recall, and I think members will recall, that the Select Committee of the Ontario Legislature did report that they could support an equal Senate, depending on the effective powers. We're making progress there. And I hope that the Government of Ontario gives very serious consideration to this matter. Now, as you know, recently in his visit here, Premier Bourassa said that they would consider the numbers after they've been able to understand the effective powers. So we are doing everything we possibly can to convince Ontario and Quebec, or either of them, but hopefully both of them, of the importance of the Triple E Senate. I think the argument, Mr. Speaker, that really does cause them to stop and think, and obviously from a recent poll, Canadians as a majority support a Triple E Senate. But the principle that I make with the premiers of Ontario and Quebec is this: you already control the House of Commons. Do you have to insist on controlling the Senate as well? Must you control not just the House of Commons, but also the Senate? Are you so uncertain that a balanced approach in the Senate would be so difficult to live with that you have to control both houses of our Parliament? And I think, Mr. Speaker, that is why Canadians, thinking fairly, are looking at this matter and saying, that's right. Why, if they already control the House of Commons, must they control the Senate as well? And I hope that understanding comes through.
Kingsway. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are to the Minister who hasn't resigned yet. Mr. Speaker.
Order. You address the ministers properly, please.
Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications. Last Thursday's news release on the Novotel sale, in that release the minister claimed that the sale of Novotel would preserve 1,000 jobs in Alberta. Yet the release in the same paragraph also states, and I quote, estimates show the potential for a net job loss of 300 existing positions over time. Will the minister please explain to Albertans how it is possible to retain 1,000 jobs at the same time as you're losing 300 jobs when Novotel only employs 950 people in Alberta in the first place?
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to enlighten the honourable member. The release did speak about the preservation of jobs, which was a very important objective for the Management Committee. And it did, in fact, preserve, as the announcement indicated, 1,000 jobs in the cellular and wireless area. That being calculated as follows. Approximately 900 jobs at Novotel were reduced by, as the honourable member points out, 300, unfortunately, but down and preserving 600 and somewhat. At the same time, Northern Telecom, which has a switching plant in Calgary, was going to be phasing that out because of changes in technology. 400 jobs would have been lost to Calgary and Alberta had this deal not come together with Northern Telecom, because instead of that, they were able to establish a worldwide center for wireless in Calgary, which will employ, as the president of Northern Telecom indicated, approximately 600 and some odd jobs a year later. So there's the calculation.
Come on, Alex. Are you, Mr. Speaker, it sounds to me like Northern Telecom was blackmailing this government and this government gave in. Why didn't you say then, why didn't the minister say, and be honest, that we were preserving something like 900 jobs out of 1,300 jobs instead of saying that he's preserving 1,000 as if they were Novotel jobs? That's exactly the way he worded the question. Why didn't you say that?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the announcement was very clear. It said we were preserving 1,000 jobs in the cellular and wireless area. And that's exactly what it is, and I think it's important for the people of Alberta and the future of telecommunications in this province.
Calgary Northwest.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Premier has asked the Auditor General to do a review of Novotel, and yet the Auditor General's report says that all of his recommendations have been addressed. Now, if that doesn't smell like a cover-up, I don't know what does. My question to the Premier, he's rejected the proposal to have a judicial review. I'm wondering if we present another proposal, will the Premier consider an establishment of a creation of an all-party committee of this legislature with full investigatory powers to call witnesses, to get papers that Albertans can get to the bottom of this $500 million mess?
Hear, hear. Mr. Speaker, I'm disappointed in the honourable member's line of questioning, particularly as he leads in. Well, Mr. We listen to their question, Mr. Speaker, and try to answer it, and they won't allow it. They don't want to hear it. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General, as the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications said, did write a management letter. The management committee dealt with his concerns, and then he said they'd been taken care of. Now, to compare that to the letter and the special duties that I have asked him to conduct with regards to Novotel, there is no comparison, and the honourable member shouldn't try and say that if the Auditor General has been given these instructions that he is now involved in a cover-up. And that's disappointing to hear the honourable member say that about our Auditor General.
Exactly.
And then he says an all-party committee of this assembly. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General is the officer of all parties in this assembly. He has excellent experience, the talent, the resources to conduct this for the Assembly. And that's exactly what he is doing. The honourable member doesn't seem to understand the import of this letter.
That's right. What did your lead?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if it were true that the Auditor General were the officer of all members of this legislature, then all members would have a copy of those management letters, which we don't.
Yeah.
So he's true that he's a member for the government. Since you're firmly committed on this particular route, will the Premier commit, now that he's had more than 30 minutes, that is, to think about it, that when there is finding of gross negligence in the Novotel fiasco, that heads will roll over there and people will be asked to resign from Cabinet?
Well, Mr. Speaker, obviously the honourable member is conducting a hypothetical exercise here, and I certainly can't go along with him in terms of trying to guess at the future. But I do know that we have a very competent and able Auditor General. I do know that he has the staff and the resources to conduct this exhaustive review, which we've asked him to do. We know he's independent. We know he's capable. We know the report is going to be made public to all the members of this Assembly and all the people of Alberta. Then, Mr. Speaker, we'll be able to respond to it.
Calgary Glenmore.
Speaker, it's very difficult to be on this side of the House and listen to nothing but doom and gloom from members opposite. And Mr. Speaker, they laugh, but I believe everybody in Alberta knows that the whole of North America is in a recession. And Mr. Speaker, this province is known to be risk takers, and this is why we still receive support. And they take risks in order to create jobs. And Mr. Speaker, recently the Conference Board of Canada, one of the most accurate economic forecasters of Alberta, says that Alberta's model should be applied national-wide with regard to our economy. This is something very significant, Mr. Speaker, and I think that the Minister of Economic Development and Trade should outline to Albertans the importance of our economic strength and why these forecasters are saying this.
Order, please. Order.
Order. Perhaps some of you would like to count light bulbs or something while you quieten down. Honourable Minister.
Speaker, as the honourable member has indicated, we are gratified with the endorsement by the Conference Board of Canada, whereby they have recognized that this government has been in a fist fight to diversify the economy, and the results have been forthcoming as it relates to job creation. And we have seen job creation within the province of Alberta over the last number of years, and in the recent budget the provincial treasurer tabled some weeks ago, we are forecasting an additional 15,000 jobs within the province of Alberta. And that is due to the diversification thrust that we have been involved in, resulting in consumer confidence. Our recent budget came forward with tax reductions for both the individual taxpayer and for our corporate sector. In addition to that, we had committed some $200 million to infrastructure costs for municipalities, which will go a considerable way to job creation. We have been very proud of our job creation figures to date, Mr. Speaker, mainly because of the diversification thrust as advocated by our Premier in forestry, tourism, and high technology. We're going to continue those thrusts, but we're also looking for that broad public input as it relates to the conference that the Premier is chairing this weekend, the Conference on Our Economy Towards 2000 Together.
Good answer. Here, here.
Well, Mr. Speaker, jobs are important to the people in Alberta, and our children are graduating from post-secondary education wondering about our economy and wondering whether or not there will be jobs out there for them. Could the minister please elaborate further on whether or not his department is continuing to progress in those areas where our post-secondary graduates would be able to obtain jobs?
Mr. Speaker, we are working very actively to attract companies that will provide long-term employment, such as Pratt & Whitney, which just recently announced that they are coming to southern Alberta, which will create some 500 direct jobs, offshoots in excess of some 400 indirect jobs. But if one examines the record, and I think it's important that we examine the record as it relates to job creation, recognizing that we do have a responsibility to future Albertans. In 1991, we created close to 15,000 jobs. As I indicated earlier, the budget that was recently tabled by the provincial treasurer projects an additional 15,000. Since 1985, we've created in excess of some 120,000 jobs. I would suggest, honourable members, we should compare that to what is taking place in the province of Ontario, which alone last year lost some 160,000 jobs, and on a nationwide basis we have seen the loss last year of some 232,000 jobs. And this just underscores our commitment to provide meaningful employment for the young people of this province so that we can continue with a strong economy, Mr. Speaker.
Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Novotel fiasco is the most spectacular tax-supported business loss in any province in Canada. The minister talks about a fist fight. They're knocked out on the floor over there. Maybe that's why the minister, Mr. Speaker, of Technology on Friday tried to fool Albertans by saying that the privatization of AGT got $1.5 billion of loans and guarantees off the backs of taxpayers. Right. Yet, Mr. Speaker, the public accounts clearly show, in fact, that this government is still on the hook for $1.2 billion in loan guarantees. I'd like to ask the Minister of Technology, Research and Telecommunications, will he explain why he made this statement to the Assembly on Friday that taxpayers were off the hook for loans and guarantees when the public accounts clearly show that the taxpayers, in fact, are still guaranteeing over $1 billion of TELUS's long-term debt?
Mr. Speaker, the debt, in fact, that did exist, that was outstanding, the guarantees that still remain in place. But the debt was paid off.
Oh, all right. Oh, Mr. Speaker, this government's statements just can't be believed or credible anymore. TELUS Corporation's 1991 annual report shows that since it was privatized, they've cut their capital expenditures by nearly 30% and plan to continue holding down capital spending in 1992. This government always said they privatized AGT so they'd have the flexibility to increase capital spending to stay competitive. Given this evidence, Mr. Speaker, will the minister now admit that the whole case for the privatization of AGT was faulty and misleading, and that statements from this government can't be believed?
That's right.
Definitely no, Mr. Speaker.
Edmonton Jasper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At a meeting organized by the Community Advisory Committee on the Cold Lake Heavy Oil Project yesterday, the Minister of the Environment and Agriculture were told of lakes which have dropped more than 4 feet in their water levels, of creeks which have run dry, and groundwater wells which have run dry as well. Despite the best efforts of some of the people in the industry to blame all of this on Mother Nature, the fact is that these water conditions are unprecedented, even during the drought conditions of the Hungry 30s. Now, I'd like to ask the Minister specifically about the long-term water management plan for the region, which was tabled by the government in 1985, which followed a 5-year comprehensive study, task force review, and promises that the oil industry would be off local water supply by 1991 at the latest. I would like to ask why his department continued and continues to allow ESSO and others to draw water in the face of overwhelming evidence that this is harming agriculture, tourism, and the environment, too.
Mr. Speaker, indeed there was a meeting of the Community Advisory Committee in Bonnyville yesterday, and they expressed, those members of the committee expressed the concerns as outlined by the honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place. With respect to his specific question, when the pipeline from the North Saskatchewan River to supply water for heavy oil operations was proposed, there were about 20 operators proposing to tie into that particular line. The economics of the situation have changed dramatically since that time, and indeed we have 1 or 2 operators now drawing water, mostly groundwater, since they have been cut off from drawing water at this particular time from Cold Lake. We're doing a reassessment of that pipeline. A task force has been set up that consists of the Honourable Minister of Agriculture, the Honourable Minister of Energy, and myself. And we're looking at all the documentation relative to the 1985 studies. We're doing a complete review. And in terms of developing a long-range program, it will be up to a complete review and a complete overhaul of the studies that have taken place to date.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I had the impression that the local citizens wanted to tie into the Minister of Agriculture as much as anything.
Yeah.
But the Minister of the Environment came to the meeting, and he did promise a task force and another study. But, you know, what happened here is we had a 5-year study and a task force, and the government ignored it. So I would simply like to ask the Minister, with all of his talk about a $200 million management plan down the road, how he can expect to be taken seriously when the government ignored the last study, ignored the last task force, and then violated its own management plan.
Yeah.
Good question.
Mr. Speaker, it's unfair to say that we ignored the last study. As I explained, the economics have changed dramatically since 1985, when there were about 20 companies wanting to tie into a pipeline from the North Saskatchewan River. We are still looking at a pipeline. Indeed, we believe that a pipeline is the ultimate solution. In the meantime, there is the question of sustaining an industry in an area that is severely depressed at this particular time, and at the same time protecting the environment. We have taken steps, Mr. Speaker, to protect the environment and still sustain ESSO's operations. We have cut them off completely from use of water of Cold Lake. We're now examining the whole subject, Mr. Speaker. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss an application for a groundwater license that is currently under consideration by the Director of Water Resources. What I have undertaken to do is to take the information that was presented to the Honourable Minister of Agriculture and myself at that meeting, to provide that information to the Director of Water Resources without fettering his discretion in any way, shape, or form, and providing that information in the hopes that he may be able to make a valued and honest decision relative to his consideration of the license.
Edmonton Meadowlark.
Mr. Speaker, no one believes the Treasurer when he says that he's getting $78 million for the sale of Novotel. To the Mr. Fix-It of this cabinet, and one would have to wonder, of course, what would have happened if he hadn't fixed it. How can the Treasurer claim that he's getting $78 million when $12 million of this amount is for a research facility that's being built by Northern Telecom for its own use, and when $20 million of this is deferred payments over 5 years secured by nothing more than a $3 million deposit?
Speaker, full details with respect to that were given at the announcement, and it's too bad the honourable member didn't take the opportunity to look into it. The amount of $12 million was in fact invested into Alberta to establish a centre of excellence in research and development. I think that its initial employment will be in the neighbourhood of 55 people who will in turn operate in the wireless area, bring expertise in research and development in that very important area, Mr. Speaker.
So every time a company in Alberta builds a building, it's money in the government's pocket. Once we take out the $12 million, Mr. Speaker, once we discount the $20 million back to today's value, once we cut away all of the minister's rhetoric that we've heard today, why will the minister not admit that he didn't get $78 million for the sale of Novotel at all? He maybe got $61 or $62 million if he was lucky.
Mr. Speaker, again, nobody is trying to fool anybody about the nature of that deal. All of these details about the Research Centre for Excellence, the payment, and he's quite right, some of it is payable over a period of 5 years, a minimum of $20 million, or 25%. And so nobody is trying to fool anybody. It's all there, and it's there for the public of Alberta to see. I think that given the circumstances of the company at the time, that notwithstanding the fact that we don't hold this up as a great and glorious type of transaction, but it is the best in the circumstances that could be achieved by that management committee, and I think it has some very important long-term benefits for Alberta.
Lesser Slave Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Most members of the legislature are, I'm sure, aware of the most beautiful all-enclosed lake in the province of Alberta. The Lesser Slave Lake, or otherwise called the Jewel of the North. Mr. Speaker, every spring for approximately 1 week, biologists in Lesser Slave Lake do measuring, clipping, sexing, and milking of eggs from the walleye at the Gruard Channel. And we want that scientific activity to continue. However, Mr. Speaker, there is grave concern regarding the long-term health of the Lesser Slave Lake spawn because of the low levels of the Lesser Slave Lake. Would the Minister of Environment provide any information on any efforts being made to ensure that the lake can be managed to make sure that it continues to be the northern playground of Alberta?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have, believe me, as much concern for Lesser Slave Lake as I do for Cold Lake and the water problems they're facing there. And I find the honourable member's question a very interesting one indeed, because here you have a lake that is going down in terms of water volume, and yet is not being affected by heavy oil industry. So it does indeed indicate that nature is playing a tremendous role in these problems, and some of the problems, of course, relate to man-made situations. Very simply, we're currently carrying out a water quality survey on Lesser Slave Lake and its tributaries for a comprehensive list of parameters to address this problem. One of the problems over the years has been sort of a Band-Aid approach to the waters feeding Lesser Slave Lake, and what we want to do is to put in place a comprehensive program that is going to make sure that the lake levels are preserved and stabilized for all time.
Mr. Speaker, I'm always pleased to know that we have some really large projects, or at least some activity going on to ensure that we do have stability as we go in terms of water management. But one area that always gets brought back to me is that fact that people are concerned that there may be water pollutants or pollutants going into the Lesser Slave Lake. And could the minister please ensure how we can get some activity in terms of long-term water management plans to make pollutants not get into the Lesser Slave Lake?
Well, it can't be solely the responsibility of government. First of all, we have to get all the stakeholders involved, and we have to get those people to take some responsibility for the amount of pollutants that they are personally responsible for. This means the agricultural community, the people who have cottages on the lake, the people who farm along the rivers, the tributaries, and so on that feed the lake, and the Alberta government. And we have to acknowledge some of the mistakes that we made 30, 40 years ago. And believe me, when you start to straighten out a riverbed channel to solve a problem upstream, well, the one thing that we found out for sure is you create another problem downstream. What we need to do, and we are doing this right now, we have a task force in place and working committees, is to bring all the stakeholders together, come up with a comprehensive plan, and hopefully find the dollars to implement that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, last week in the Assembly, the Minister of Family and Social Services expressed his respect for the Children's Advocate and then went on to say that the serious weaknesses within the child welfare system that were expressed in the recent annual report by the Children's Advocate were in fact not even happening. Mr. Speaker, the Children's Advocate calls on the Minister as well as the Attorney General's Department to resolve the critical issue within child welfare of massive delays in decision making, because the delays may mean that a child will never be reunited with their families or may never be adopted. So to the Minister of Family and Social Services, given that these serious delays are literally ruining many children's lives, when is this minister going to act, along with the Attorney General, on the strong recommendation of the Children's Advocate to ensure that there is more aggressive planning for these children so that permanent relationships can be established as soon as possible?
Mr. Speaker, again, I can reiterate the commitment and appreciation I have for our Children's Advocate. And in response to the specific question, Mr. Speaker, I can assure the member that the moment that I received that report, I made sure that we began to implement the recommendations of the Children's Advocate. I can also say, Mr. Speaker, that the report is somewhat dated by the time it comes forward and by the time it is tabled, and that we had enacted on many of the recommendations within that report. I can say that we share the member's concern, that we're doing all that we can to step up permanency of children that come into care. The member knows that we've added substantive numbers of additional child welfare workers, that we've reshifted our focus in terms of the existing personnel that were in place. Mr. Speaker, I acted just as soon as I received that report.
Mr. Speaker, it would be very helpful if the Minister could be forthcoming with some specifics about what he is doing to address some of these issues. We don't have that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, another serious concern raised within the report was the fact that presently children's cases are not regularly monitored to review the progress that's being made towards permanency placement. I'd like to ask the Minister, can he be specific then, if he's making progress in all these areas, what progress has he made then to implement a monitoring system that would ensure more successful permanent placement with these children?
Mr. Speaker, I was very specific in my answer last time, and I'll be specific in my answer again this time. I told the member in response to the concerns raised by the Children's Advocate, we have implemented a number of changes. We have added additional frontline workers. We have improved upon the automation that we had in place and in terms of the information that we need to be able to keep on these children. We have, as a result of the Children's Advocate's recommendation, put in a quality assurance process that allows us now to monitor these files on an ongoing and a very regular basis. Mr. Speaker, we are working very quickly and very efficiently to respond to the kinds of concerns and issues and suggestions that the Children's Advocate brings forward. We want to do what's best for these children, Mr. Speaker. I pay very close attention not only to what the Children's Advocate has to share with this government as it relates to advice, Mr. Speaker, but also to foster parents, and the member knows, again, she wants specifics. We have restructured our foster parent program in this province in consultation with the Alberta Foster Parent Association to respond to the needs of those children, Mr. Speaker. We have, as I said earlier, automated and made some significant changes there. We have added staff and made significant changes there. We have put in a workload model, Mr. Speaker, that's the envy of the nation. Mr. Speaker, very, very significant progress has been made as it relates to child welfare in this province.
Edmonton Glengarry on a purported point of privilege.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of privilege, and I quote Standing Orders, Section 15, Subsection 1, Section 15, Subsection 5, Beauchesne 25, Beauchesne 114, Subsection 1, Beauchesne 115, and Beauchesne 118. Mr. Speaker, the question of privilege arises out of the questions during question period that I put to the Honourable Minister responsible for telecommunications, and specifically dealt with the issue concerning the release, the tabling, forthwith tabling of the management letters that the Auditor General has provided to the Minister responsible, the Minister for Telecommunications. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to start by reading our Standing Order 15. A breach of the rights of the Assembly of any member constitutes a question of privilege. 15.5, a member may always rise or raise a question of privilege in the Assembly immediately after the words are uttered or the events occur that give rise to the question. Beauchesne 115, the question of privilege must be brought to the attention of the House at the first possible opportunity. Beauchesne 114, it is customary for questions of privilege arising during question period and those for which notice has been given to be considered at the conclusion of question period. A complaint, and this is subsection 2 of 114 Beauchesne, a complaint of a breach of privilege must conclude with a motion providing the House with an opportunity to take some action. I've filed with the clerk a copy of that motion. Mr. Speaker, the matter of privilege relates to what I consider to be a critical document or documents that pertain to the Novotel financial mess that Albertans now face, a $566 million loss that Albertans must make good. There are two management letters. We're told by the Auditor General that he issued a management letter in 1989 and a second management letter in 1991. The Auditor General has informed me that as a matter of course, the minister responsible receives a copy of the management letter. The minister has acknowledged that he has received, although it took him a little while, has acknowledged the fact that he has received these management letters. Now, Mr. Speaker, I think it's important for us to take note of what the Premier in this Assembly said just moments ago, and that is that the Auditor General is an officer of this Legislative Assembly. The Auditor General is not
the private auditor of the minister responsible for telecommunications. He is not the private auditor for the cabinet, and he is not the private auditor for the government. He is the Auditor General for this Legislative Assembly. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the Auditor General Act, if you look at Section 3, it quotes what the Premier said, that the Auditor General is an officer of the Assembly. It says then in Sections 18 and 19, this is not a funny matter, Mr. Treasurer. This is a matter involving $566 million that you and your colleagues are responsible for losing.
Order, please. Order, please. Both sides of the House. Please continue, Edmonton Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, Section 18 of the Auditor General's Act says, at the end of each fiscal period, the Auditor General shall report to the Assembly. 19, report to the Assembly. A special report, as requested by the Premier under 17.2, if you look at Section 20, subsection 2, says that after that special report is done, the Auditor General must submit the report to the Chairman of the Select Standing Committee. Everything is done through these sections to show that the Auditor General reports to the Assembly and not to a minister. There is one section, Mr. Speaker, that I think needs to be looked at by you and by, I would suggest, the lawyers that give you assistance. That section says as follows: the Auditor General shall, as soon as practicable, advise the appropriate officers or employees of a department, provincial agency, or Crown-controlled organization of any matter discovered in his examination that, in the opinion of the Auditor General, is material to the operation of the department, provincial agency, or Crown-controlled organization, and shall, as soon as practicable, advise the Treasurer of any of those matters that, in the opinion of the Auditor General, are material to the exercise or performance of the Treasurer's powers and duties. Now, Mr. Speaker, I specifically, and if you review Blues, the Speaker will note that my questions were specific in this sense to the questions that were put to the Minister of Telecommunications. Did he consult with his cabinet colleagues? And his response was that we provided or we issued a mandate. Here's the wording. We gave them a firm mandate. Mr. Speaker, that answer was specific to the question that I put, and that related to whether the cabinet itself had dealt with this management letter situation. The response was that we gave them a firm mandate. Mr. Speaker, my view is that the laws of our province are being breached in the sense that you could extend Section 28 of the Auditor General Act to allow the minister responsible to get this information by calling him an appropriate officer of a department, but this does not include we, that is, the members of cabinet that gave a firm mandate to Novotel or to whomever to deal with the management letters. Mr. Speaker, the laws of this province are supposed to apply to everyone, fairly, equally, appropriately. They can't be in some way skewed to be used as the private area of a minister or a cabinet or anybody else. And that is what will happen if, Mr. Speaker, you rule that there isn't a question of privilege, because it will allow the minister to consult with his cabinet colleagues to extend way beyond Section 28, what Section 28 of the Auditor General's Act provides for, and to give advantage to members of this Assembly that other members of this Assembly do not have advantage in having. And that affects the right of the member from Edmonton Glengarry and every other member of this Assembly to properly get to the truth of the matters that are being pursued, and questions, Mr. Speaker, provide truth. Those management letters that the minister himself stands up and uses are now critical in knowing about, in the sense of knowing the full story for this Assembly and knowing specifically for members so that they can pursue the truth through questions and know exactly why this $566 million loss occurred. Was it only the responsibility of the Minister of Telecommunications? Was he the only one making those decisions? Or was it the Cabinet as a whole? What's the story? So, Mr. Speaker, my rights as a member of this Assembly are affected. I'm not able to pursue the truth by these documents being hidden. And I invite the Speaker to review the blues and to, I think, come to the conclusion that my rights as a member of this Assembly have been breached, and that we should then go to the next step, and that is to have a motion that this matter be dealt with by the Select Committee of this House. Thank you.
Deputy Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I've listened with great interest to the Honourable Member for Edmonton Glengarry, and as he referenced Standing Order 15, Mr. Speaker, I'm with somewhat of a dilemma because from my point of view, I do not understand how, with reference to his argument, anybody's rights have been bridged, either those of an individual or those of the House. And Mr. Speaker, under Standing Order 15.6, I know that you're only too eager to listen to the various points of view with regard to the member's claim, but Mr. Speaker, I do not for the life of me understand where these rights have been abridged, and I wish you well, Mr. Speaker, in your finding.
Additional.
The minister quoted a document and should file it, but you table it in the legislature, and if he does that, then I don't know whose privileges have been breached.
Chair will need to check the blues because at one stage there was a concern in the flurry of question period as to whether or not some copy of some document had already been a matter of public record, and without being in a position to double check that at this time, the chair will have to hold on to the matter until tomorrow. Orders of the day.
Government motions. Motion number 18.